I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with Stamperia Scrapbook Pads. I love their themes, their color schemes, their focal images, the backgrounds that they create. They are absolutely scrumptious. What I don't love is the fact that I don't tend to use up the scrapbook pad, and so much of it just sits in storage. So if you share that problem, grab a coffee and let me share with you how I'm going to maximize my crafting dollars and make the most out of those scrapbook pads. So this is the Masquerade scrapbook pad. I couldn't resist, I just had to buy it. It is absolutely beautiful. And while most of the scrapbook pads from Stamperia follow a similar pattern, so I'm just going to flip through this. Now you have some beautiful focal images, large scale, and then you have some beautiful backgrounds. They are double-sided, so you have to make a decision. Are you going to use this side or that side? And that complicates matters. Again, we have a couple larger focal images that I could definitely use, but that means that the page is going to be all cut up. These beautiful backgrounds that they create, well, if I use the focal images, again, I'm not going to be using that. How do you decide what to use? So you flip through your scrapbook pad, as I'm doing here. Take note of the backgrounds, take note of the colors, schemes, because there's value beyond just what you can cut out and use. And I'm going to share that with you. Again, I'm showing this beautiful masquerade themed scrapbook pad. And I can use a lot of the elements with this. I can buy other things, rice papers, ephemera, what have you. But you have, you know, 5 or 6 pages that are double-sided with beautiful backgrounds, some focal images. They have some cards like this. Every collection I've had seems to have that. These are double-sided, so you can use them in different ways. That opens up options. You have some rounds, again, double-sided. There's one sheet that has some sentiments that you can use in your mixed media pieces, your journaling, your card making. And then on the back, you have, as in the front, some smaller ephemera that you can cut out. So step one in maximizing it, harvest the elements. Get a pair of scissors, take a deep breath, and cut them out. Commit. I know that I'm going to use these beautiful focal images. What I don't necessarily want to be stuck with is using it exactly as they have it. I could cut this out, glue it down, and call it done, but I want to create. I want to create some backgrounds. I want to add other things that I have in my stash, maybe from the Stamperia collection, maybe from things that I've just accumulated over time, printables, the stencils and stamps. So one of the things you have to do is release those focal images and ephemera from the artist's idea. This is a beautiful page, but I'm not going to use it exactly as it is. So I need to release those elements. So I'm looking at each page and I'm cutting out the elements that I think I'm going to use. I know myself as an artist. I know what I like or what I don't like. I know what I have in my stash. So I'm just going to cut those out. Now, one, it releases it from that artist's vision of using these elements. So it opens you up to a whole bunch more possibilities. Secondly, if you're cutting it out all in this kind of stash builder situation, it is ready to go. So you're going to shorten your creative time. So here I've got these rounds and they've some smaller ephemera. Now I'm not taking the time to cut out every little bit of small ephemera. The reason being, I don't want to waste my time cutting out things that I may never use. And I don't want them to get lost if they're too small. So I'm going to leave them in kind of those squares like you saw me doing. So I'm basically cutting out things, the bigger things. Now these are double-sided and we're going to talk about how you can use these later. So we're going to come back to these because I've got a few ideas. These cards are also double-sided and give you different ways to use it, which I'm going to talk about. Off the excess, getting rid of the garbage, that is just going to save me time later down the road. And if it's going to save me time, I'm more likely to use it. So again, I'm going to cut out this feather. I'm just going to rough cut this. I don't do the fussy cutting to the extreme at this stage. I leave my options open. I could cut this apart at a later time if I'm not ready to make that decision. But I want to get rid of some of that excess and the possibilities. I'll come back in with an X-Acto knife and do some more of the finer fussy cutting. There's another corner piece that I could use. So we have the sentiments. Now, again, these are double-sided. The other side is blank, and that's going to give us opportunities to expand their use. It's also giving me ideas for ways to use other parts of this. So I'm just cutting that off, looking at what is there, taking the time to get ideas. And as I'm cutting this, I am thinking about what else do I have in my stash that goes with the sentiment, which goes with a focal image, which goes with this. By taking the time, cutting this apart at this stage, I'm also familiarizing myself with this program. Now, this is the front. Now, we have all this ephemera on the back, but we have the front sheet. And I'm looking at, I like these two girls. It's smaller scale. I want to use them more than I want to use the ephemera on the back. Okay, it's tough times. You got to take a breath and commit one way or another. But I know, again, what kind of things I'm going to create. There's a lot of that ephemera on that other side, so I think I can sacrifice a bit of it. There's still lots there that I'll use. And realistically, am I going to use the entire sheet of that color scheme on one thing? So I'm just going to cut that into smaller pieces, making a decision, front or back, front or back. But make that commitment because then you're more likely to use it. So the cards and the rounds are both double-sided, and that gives you more possibilities. Now, you can use them just as they are. They can go on top of an art journal page that exists. You can put one or two of them somehow on an art journal on a background that you've created. You also have the option of cutting out the images and just using them if you don't want to use it as a card. Same thing with the rounds. It's a small scale that might work really well on a card. The other option is to use the blank side and build your own, whether it's ephemera that you've created or some of the small scale ephemera that they have, and you can create it exactly to your liking. Love these flowers. That would look nice on there. Use these more as frames. So again, because they're double-sided, you get to choose how you want to use them. So here we have the ephemera that I have released. Some larger focal images, some smaller ones, the rounds, the cards, and the sentiments. So because they're now cut off and I've removed some of that excess paper around it, I can fit it in these plastic envelopes that I love. So all of this theme-based goodness can go in here. I've all in one place. So whether I want to use multiple pieces of this at any given time, it all fits in here. This can be stored easily in and around my worktop so I can grab it. So again, I am more likely to use it than if it is filed away too far away from where I am creating. So that it is this shape, it fits into the bins that I've purchased at Dollar Tree. So I've got other assorted ephemera in here, and this can be kept nice and handy. And the closer it is to where you create, the more likely you are to reach for it and use it. The other thing you can take from the focal images, from the backgrounds, is borrow the color scheme. It is a winning color scheme. These are artists that create this. So I went through my paints and I pulled out the colors that are used in the focal images, that are used in the backgrounds, that are working so well together. So we have Liquitex Basics Turquoise with varying shades of white added. Liquitex Naples Yellow, Armstrong Naples Yellow. Both of those yellows are in some of the focal images. Unbleached Titanium, Prussian Blue, Burnt Umber. So that is the Masquerade color scheme, and I can use that with the focal images and ephemera that I was able to harvest from this scrapbook page, or on other projects. I'm not limited to that. So looking at the focal images that I've harvested, as I was cutting it out, I was thinking, what do I have in my stash? And I'm pulling things that would work with this. The seafoam foil transfer sheet, the champagne gold one. My clearly aligned script stamps are close to what's here. Some go through your stencils. Which ones would work with this? And write them down. This is going to go into here. So I have all that brainstorming and thinking all in one place. What you're looking at here are the backgrounds. I cut off the ephemera from the one side, or the focal image from the one side, but these are the backgrounds, and they are absolutely gorgeous. Now, most of this is too small to be used on my art journal page. It's less than a 7 by 10 or by 9 by 12. And while I can use some of this, rip a strip and put that on, or use it as an Insta background, that's not usually how I roll. But I'm loving the backgrounds that they created. So I'm going to borrow their ideas. And there's two ways of doing that. I can keep a sample of this. And what I suggest is just make your own tag, or glue it onto a shipping tag. A number 8 would fit. And you have a sample of the background that I can then use my stamps, stencils, swirls, however, and duplicate this. So I would cut one out of each of these scrumptious backgrounds. You don't want to go too small because you want to be able to see all the different elements, and then duplicate that as a background to use with the focal images that I've taken from this, or just any art journal page. The second way you can preserve those backgrounds that you love is to take reference photos. Take a picture of the background before you do any cutting, and then you can save this on a file on your laptop, on your phone, and you can easily reference it at any point in time when you're looking for ideas for backgrounds. Easy peasy. So I dug out the colors that go with this color scheme, and I did actually use those background papers as inspiration, the patterns, the textures that were there, to make some backgrounds. So here I use this one. I like the swirls. I like there's music notes there. We've got some of the brown, and here's the background that I created inspired by that. another background that I created. You could also use these pages, work perfectly on cards. You can cut the base out and add a focal image for a card. You can use these backgrounds to cover mini composition books. Again, add a focal image, whether it's from the masquerade setting or from something else. You could also use your various punches. I've got different size circles and stars. I don't have very many punches, but I can punch some of the background in there, and that would make an interesting addition to an art journal page or a mixed media page. You can also make some mini tags. We have some that were in there. You can position it where you think it's going to be somewhat interesting, maximizing it, or, you know, just figuring out what works best and just cut out some tags. So you could do this ahead of time so that you have the blank tags ready to go, or just store the papers. And remember that you can do this when you want them. So here we have this side and this side. We have beautiful tags. And if you do junk journaling, or just you want something to add to a page, look how nice that is. Also just cut them into regular shapes and use a corner rounder. And again, you can put a sentiment on here or a tag, hole punch. So none of this needs to go to waste. Let me just, oops. So don't throw away any of this. I have little bits here. I'm just going to rip them, and that's going to break. I'm going to use them to break my page here. I'm not too specific. At the very least, it's going to add some interesting texture to this background, which then I can cover with whatever colors. I don't even have to stick to this color scheme necessarily. I can just it's just adding texture, but nothing needs to go to waste. And you can alternatively just cut them into rectangles and just glue a bunch of rectangles and squares and on your page. So I would just use the gel medium and put them down. You can overlap or not, as the case may be. And the Stamperia papers really go down well. I'm going to take these leftover backgrounds and turn them into ready to go, usable items. And one of the tools that I'm going to use to help me do that are these window templates. I've got them cut for various sizes and shapes, and I'm just going to take them out. This one's a 5x7. I could put that on a card or a wood panel that I have as an Insta background. And I'm just going to look and see what parts of this will work for whatever sizes. And I'm going to go through the various templates that I have and all the various backgrounds. And when I see something I like, I'm going to harvest it so that it is ready to go, easy peasy. You can even use these backgrounds and see and make borders. They could be just rectangular shapes like that, or you could cut out scalloped edges and use them as borders. Ooh, wouldn't this make a lovely card or the beginning of a lovely background? So when you use the templates, you're going to putting a window on it and you see the possibilities that exist. I want this ready to go. They're too big to put into my storage system, so I need them small and ready to go. So I chose to cut up all the other sheets because I didn't want to store them. They're kind of awkward shaped. They would have to go in my filing cabinet, and I wanted them close at hand, and I wanted them small enough to fit into here. So I made some tough decisions, and I decided I cut out a couple card backgrounds. And this is my 6x6. I glued this on with gel medium. I have another one here. Now these can be used as they are, or I can add some of the ephemera, some of the smaller scale ephemera that came with the set, or I can go into my stash and pull out things that might match that color scheme. After I harvested the backgrounds for the cards, the biggest portions of that, I cut some other shapes that I would be able to use in my backgrounds. I like using hexagons or cutting out circles that I can attach the focal image to on an art journal page. And that gives weight to the focal image. So I cut out some hexagons and some circles. And then when I had larger portions, I just cut out those regular shaped. They were large enough to make tags or journaling tags. Now these could be collaged in. I could hole punch them. They could be gift tags. Not sure. I also made some tags. They had a couple in there, and I made these. Now these are double-sided, so I have options when I'm using them. They could be just gift tags as well. I also covered up a couple of mini composition books. Now again, this can be used as is without anything added to it, or I can add something to it from the Masquerade scrapbook page or from my stash. Some of these flowers I can cut out and decoupage them on there on the cover. Looks great. One of the things that I decided, I cut these 3x3 squares and I corner round them and glued them onto a gessoed art journal page. This is going to be the beginnings of grid journaling. So I'm going to do some stamping and stenciling and maybe modeling paste and whatever, but I'm going to use the backgrounds from the Masquerade, the color scheme, as the jumpstart for my grid journaling. So all of this, now that it's all cut up, ready to use, it all is fitting into my plastic envelope here. This is going to be kept again close at hand, and nice thing is it's all together. Once all of that was harvested and either glued onto the composition books or on the card basis, I had some leftovers. I cut out all the off sizes and I have lots of rectangles that I can do more backgrounds. I can add to an art journal page like I did on here. So this I'm just going to keep right close at hand and use up. So really nothing goes to waste.